When the Waltons appeared on television in 1972, the cast of the show didn't think it would make it past one season. In fact, it seems some people working on the series didn't even believe it was going to make it to air. This apparently included Michael Learned, who played matriarch Olivia Walton on the series. According to Michael, she had been led to believe the production of the show was some kind of tax write-off. The series ended up being a runaway hit and lasted 9 seasons, but only 7 of those seasons ended up including Michael, as she left the series before it ended. The actress still regrets the decision. Join Facts First as we explore how Michael Learned still regrets leaving the Waltons to this day. Before the Waltons came on the air, Michael Learned was a recently divorced single mother struggling to make it big in the entertainment industry. She had nursed dreams of stardom for most of her life, and her former husband had been an aspiring performer alongside her. Michael took her role on the Waltons because she needed the money, not because she believed in the series. Just prior to the Waltons, Michael Learned had been making some waves as an actress on stage. She appeared in a production of a play called Private Lives, having been directed by Francis Ford Coppola. Around the same time, she also appeared on stage as Cleopatra in a notable production. When she received the offer to play the matriarch Olivia Walton on the Waltons, she wasn't initially enthused. The character was older than the ones Michael was aspiring to play, and she was also unsure about working in television. Life is tough on a single mother, and Michael ended up taking her job on the Waltons just for the paycheck. According to Michael, she had never seen so much money in her life. She was offered the chance to make more than $1,000 a week on the show, which helped a lot with her and her son's living situation. She took the money, but she didn't think the show would go anywhere. According to Michael, there were theories going around during production of the first season that the show was simply a tax write-off. Michael enjoyed the money she got from television. Michael Learned was grateful for the relatively huge amount of money she was getting from the Waltons, but she was also perturbed by the amount of hours she had to put in. According to the actress, she'd often have to work 14-hour days just to meet the series' rigorous demands. As one might imagine, she was at least somewhat happy about the prospect of the Waltons ending after one season, even if it meant losing her hefty paycheck. She could go back to working her way up the ranks on stage with more money in her bank account than before. But the Waltons ended up lasting much more than a season. In fact, it ended up becoming something of an instant sensation with critics. They fell in love with the historical drama, and Michael Learned essentially achieved her dream of stardom overnight. But this victory came with the caveat that the role that made her famous was one she wasn't very passionate about. Not only that, she would have to continue torturing herself with rigorous shooting schedules to perform. Whether or not the Waltons was only meant to last for a season, it ended up lasting for 9. It became a favorite with critics, and the critics gave the network a reason to keep it on the air until it started pulling in an audience. By the end of the show's first season, it had gained so much traction with audiences that a second season was inevitable. This video is sponsored by ZBiotics. ZBiotics is a probiotic drink that helps you feel better the day after drinking. Many people think dehydration is responsible for that morning after feeling, but it's actually due to an alcohol byproduct that builds up in the gut. ZBiotics produces an enzyme specifically to break down this byproduct and reduce the after effects of alcoholic beverages. This is real science that works, not random vitamins and plant extracts like everything else. And ZBiotics is so easy to use. Just drink a bottle of ZBiotics before your first drink of alcohol. You only need 1 bottle. Then drink responsibly, pace yourself, and get a good night's sleep. Thanks to ZBiotics, you can enjoy your next day feeling refreshed and ready to make the most of it. Every time I have ZBiotics before drinking, I am amazed at how good I feel the next day. With the holiday season upon us, consider gifting ZBiotics to give the gift of a better next morning. It's unique, thoughtful, and under $40. If you use the code FACTSFIRST at checkout, you can get an extra 15% off your first order. Click the link in the description or go to zbiotics.com/factsfirst and get 15% off. The Waltons was an unlikely phenomenon. A second season was produced and then a third. The show went on to span 9 seasons in total, but only 7 of these seasons featured Michael Learned as a main cast member. When the 7th season finished production in 1979, Michael opted out of returning as a main cast member for the 8th. Instead, she appeared a few times as a guest. She also didn't show up at all during the series' 9th and final season. In the decades since this all went down, people have often wondered why Michael quit the Waltons before its proper end. Now we finally know the answer. Prior to Michael Learned leaving the series in 1979, another major player had left. Though Michael played the family matriarch, the main character of the Waltons was really her on-screen son, whose name was John Boy. Actor Richard Thomas initially played him, but he was eventually replaced with actor Robert Whiteman. Changing the actor who played John Boy spelled the end for the Waltons, even if that came relatively slowly. The series started to lose popularity as soon as this change was made, and this included with the cast and crew. Michael Learned was one of many people working on the series who became somewhat disenchanted after Richard Thomas left. Richard had been such a major part of the series, and it was silly to think he could have been replaced. Michael tried her best to continue performing her role as if nothing had changed, but she couldn't bring herself to do it. The loss of Richard Thomas was the major reason Michael turned her back on the Waltons, but a few other things helped the choice. Michael disliked working on the Waltons. As we've established, Michael was never one for the shooting schedule that TV demanded. She never really could get used to the rigorous demands of shooting, even though the show gave her lots of money and fame. After 7 seasons of constant grinding, she couldn't keep it up anymore. Given that the show was now a shell of its former self in the wake of Richard Thomas's departure, it was an easy decision. The role of John Boy was recast after Richard left, but Olivia was simply written off of the program after Michael Learned's departure. The series couldn't go on without John Boy, but could feasibly go on without Olivia. Still, the character was sorely missed. The writers explained Olivia's absence by saying she'd come down with a case of tuberculosis, which necessitated a long trip to Arizona for medical treatment. As such, she showed up in a guest starring capacity a few times during the 8th season before disappearing from the 9th and final season. But she did reprise the role in some made-for-TV reunion features following the Waltons. Michael Learned is still around today and still loves to reminisce about her time on the show. Though she didn't have the best time filming the series, she still maintains friendships with many of the people she met. In addition to disliking the rigorous shooting schedules, she also didn't like the character of Olivia Walton. She felt the character was too saccharine. Despite this, Michael claims today she wishes she had stayed on for the duration of the Waltons' run. Michael wishes she hadn't quit the show. For posterity's sake, Michael Learned wishes she had appeared as a main cast member in the final 2 seasons. According to her, it wouldn't have been that difficult and would have been worth it just to say she did it. Perhaps this is why the actress was so keen to come back and remedy her mistake by reprising the role of Olivia Walton in the reunion features. Though the long days of shooting the Waltons got monotonous, there were times when things happened that shook up the set of the program. For instance, one episode was called The Prize, and it reunited Michael on screen with the husband she'd divorced before the series premiered. The man Michael Learned was married to before starring on The Waltons was Peter Donat. During an episode of The Waltons, where a former flame of Olivia's came back into town and caused tension between the matriarch and her husband, the producers thought it would be perfect to cast Michael's own former husband. Thankfully, the situation wasn't awkward at all. They got along fine after their divorce. Now it's time to hear from you. Are you a fan of The Waltons? Do you wish Michael Learned had stayed on for all 9 seasons? Let us know in the comments section below.